everyone, these are the notes for the unit called polynomial functions, and this is objective 1. So we have quite a few examples to go over. It's a large objective, and I've broken them down into 4 different parts with the titles in a different color. So there's rewriting polynomials, there's multiplying polynomials, there's factoring polynomials, and then there's some special exceptions that we're going to go over today. Okay, so let's just start with slide 1, rewriting polynomials. So when we say rewriting polynomials, what we're really doing here is combining like terms. So hopefully you've encountered that in a math class before. And when I say like terms, it's mean you can only put together terms that have the same variable, which is a letter, and the same exponent, okay? So this problem, we're gonna combine things that are like terms. But first, if you notice, we have parentheses here and we have negative signs out front of the parentheses. What we need to do first is take this negative sign and distribute it to everything inside the parenthesis that it's in front of. So let's just look at my first parenthesis first. So if I would distribute that negative sign to everything inside, then that first term, which is 2b squared, is going to become a negative 2b squared. Now, if I take this negative sign and distribute to the second term, which is already a negative b, 2 negatives make a positive. So that's going to become a positive b. So that's we've taken care of that first parenthesis by distributing the negative out front. Now let's take care of our second parenthesis. Again, there is a negative out front. So the negative with 2b squared becomes a negative 2b squared. And then my second term is a positive 5b, and that's a negative is being distributed to it, so it's going to become a negative 5b, okay? So there we go. We took care of our negatives. Now let's combine like terms. So remember what I said about like terms. It's the same variable or letter, and it's the same exponent. So the first term I see is negative 2b squared. I'm going to put it in orange. Now, what can I combine it with? Yes, my next term has a b, but notice how this next term does not have the same exponent of 2. You can only combine same letters with the same exponent. So I cannot combine negative 2b squared and b. Now I have another negative 2b squared. I could combine those two together because they have the same letter and they have the same exponent. And then last, I have a minus 5b. Again, it's the same letter, but it's not the same exponent. So let's combine just our orange. So negative 2b squared minus 2b squared. It's going to be a negative 2 minus 2, which is going to be a negative 4. And then again, keep that same letter and variable with it. So we just combined those orange terms, and it became a negative 4b squared. Next, we have 1b, right? We have a b, I'm going to put that in green. And then we have minus 5b. They both just have the letter b. So this would be 1b minus 5. That's going to be a negative 4b. This would be your final answer. You cannot put those two together because, again, they have the same letter but not the same exponent. So this is your final answer. I'm going to underline it. Okay, so you're going to get some problems in the quiz where you're combining like terms. Just be careful that it's the same letter and the same exponent. Okay, our next type of example is going to be multiplying polynomials. So we're going to use the box method. Again, maybe you've seen this in Algebra 1. Maybe you haven't. I'll walk through it with you regardless. But if you notice here, the problem is saying that I want you to multiply these two parentheses, 2x minus 3, and I want you to multiply it by x minus 4. So you can't just simply distribute. It's a more complex problem, and we're going to use this box to help us. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this first parenthesis, 2x minus 3. And if you see, I have blank lines for you. So I'm going to put that first term, 2x, on the first blank line. And you can erase those lines if you want. And then I'm going to put my second term, which is a minus 3. Don't lose that negative sign. It's a minus 3. That's going to be at the top here. And then on the side, I'm going to put my second parenthesis, which is x minus 4. So the first term is x. The second term is a minus 4. Again, don't lose that negative. Okay, so why am I doing this? Well, we're going to use this box to help us multiply. So in this first box, I'm going to look at 2x and x. If I would multiply just those two together, what would I get? 2x times x is going to be 2x squared, right? There's one 2 out front. There's two x's. That becomes x squared. Okay? Next, if I want to fill out this box, now I'm going to look at my x because that lines up. But now I'm going to be looking at my negative 3. So what is negative 3 times x? That's pretty easy, right? It's a negative 3x. Okay, for this box, let's look at 2x, but now we're looking at it multiplied by negative 4. 2x times negative 4 is a negative 8x. And then lastly, I'm looking at negative 3 and negative 4. What is negative 3 times negative 4? Two negatives make a positive. It's a positive 12. Okay, now that's not my final answer. I need to pull out all of these terms to make one final answer. So I'm just going to go in order. I'm going to first pull out my 2x squared. Next, my minus 3x. Next, my minus 8x. And then lastly, my positive 12. So here's a good answer, but remember, we can kind of remember from our first problem, can we combine any like terms? Remember, like terms is same letter, same exponent. Well, if I look here in the middle, negative 3x and negative 8x, those have the same letter, right? Same exponent. Let's combine those. What is a negative 3 minus 8? Hopefully you can do that in your head. If not, use a calculator. Negative 3 minus 8 is a negative 11x. So here is your final solution, and this would be the answer if you multiplied those. Okay, let's do another one. So over here, I just see one set of parentheses, negative 2n plus 4, but notice how it's being squared. So there's actually two of these. So if I were to rewrite this, it would look like negative 2n plus 4, negative 2n plus 4, like two parentheses that are the exact same. That's what it means when it says it's squared. So let's do the same thing. Let's write our terms. So the first one is negative 2n. The second one is a positive 4. And then we would just write the exact same thing over here on this side. So negative 2n, positive 4. All right? And let's do our multiplication. So this first box is going to be negative 2n times negative 2n. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. And then we're going to have n squared because there's two n's. N times n is n squared. Next box, we have 4 times a negative 2n. That's going to be a negative 8n. Same thing, we have negative 2n times 4. It's a negative 8n. And last, we have 4 times 4, which is positive 16. Let's pull out these terms. Our first one was 4n squared. We had a minus 8n, we have a minus 8n, and we have a plus 16. Remember, just like before, we can combine these middle ones. Negative 8 minus 8 is going to be a negative 16n. And that is your final answer. So if you get a problem like this on the quiz, if you go down to slides 3 and 4, I have given you extra blank box methods that you can use if this helps you. If not, if you want to use paper and pencil, that's fine. But there are some extra blank ones on slides 3 and 4. Okay, let's go to slide 2 for our next examples. So this next one, factoring, is like the opposite. So we're going to take an answer like this and actually come up with two parentheses. Okay, so we're going to have to do some mental math here, but So we know that our answer, so the problem is x squared minus 9x minus 10. We know that our answer is going to be 2 parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to start by just putting 2 parentheses. I know my answer has to have 2 parentheses. Now, the first thing inside my parentheses is going to be this first term, x squared, split up into 2 parentheses. So x and x. Now, our next terms, we have to think of 2 numbers that will multiply to be negative 10, but add up to be negative 9. So 2 numbers that will multiply to be negative 10, but add up to be negative 9. So let's just think about what numbers can we add, or I'm sorry, let's think about the negative 10 first. What numbers can we multiply to get a negative 10? Well, there's 1 and negative 10, right? 1 and negative 10, you can multiply to get you negative 10. Well, let's check. If you add these up, would that get you a negative 9? 1 plus negative 10, yeah, that equals negative 9, right? This is an easy problem because that worked out. But if this wouldn't work out, you'd have to keep going, right? What else can you multiply to get you negative 10? Well, I could try, 2 and negative 5, because 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. But do those, if you add those up, does that equal negative 9? No, that equals negative 3. So you kind of have to mess around with it. And again, it's what 2 numbers multiply to get your last one, but at the same time, add to get your second term. So these are our 2 numbers, 1 and negative 10. So those will be the numbers positive 1, negative 10 that go in our parentheses. So you really have to kind of just mess around, list out your factors, multiply, and then add. Okay, so this is our final answer right here, x plus 1, x minus 10, and that was all because of our test that we did the very first time. All right, we are almost done. We have 2 special exceptions. One is called perfect square trinomials, and the other is a difference of 2 squares. The answer for both of these, again, are going to be 2 parentheses. They're just a little bit easier than testing numbers out. They have like a pretty specific rhyme and reason. Okay, so the perfect square trinomials, and for this class, I will always tell you if you're going to be using this. I won't make you figure out if it's a perfect square. I'll tell you it is a perfect square. So what you're going to do is we're going to start with this first term, and you're going to square root the first number. Square root. So what is the square root of 49? And that would be 7. But you have to also do the square root of x squared, which is x. Okay, so that's your first term. And then what you do to find the second term, instead of doing these, trial and error, you just take the last number and you do the square root again. What is the square root of 25? It's 5. And because there's all plus signs in our problem, we're going to keep a plus sign in our answer. Okay? So this would be your final answer. A little bit easier than this other one that we just did. If there was a minus sign in your answer, then you would put a minus sign in. If there's a minus sign in your problem, you'd put a minus sign in your answer. Okay. The other special exception is called difference of 2 squares. Again, I will tell you when you're doing this, and it's very similar to the perfect square trinomials. You're going to take the square root of your first term, which is 4x squared. If you square root that, that becomes 2x and 2x. Take the square root of your second number. Square root of 9 is 3. And then the difference with this one is one of your parentheses is a plus sign, one of your parentheses is a minus sign. Okay, so these are your special exceptions. Other than that, you're just doing normal factoring, normal multiplying, or rewriting. All right, good luck on your quiz.